welcome to Open Book, a production of EPTV and brought to you by Elysian Press. I'm joined today by my partner, Jen Ryan, by Joe Murphy, who is our editor and in-house cover designer, Danielle DeVore, who is our editorial assistant, and by some of our absolutely fabulous writers, including Sean T. Poindexter, Luann Carroll, Mac Little, S.A. Larson, and Agnes Jane. Did I miss anybody? I think I got us all. Again, welcome to Open Book. We are going to be starting our first segment with paper cuts, and that is going to be led by Danielle DeVore. And she's going to be talking about Suicide Squad today and how it ties into the literary world. Danielle, you want to take it away?
Sure. The biggest thing about Suicide Squad is that it began as a comic book series clear back in 1959. Its first appearance was in a comic called The Bold and the Brave. Character Rick Flag headed up Suicide Squad. There's been numerous incarnations of this book throughout the years. The one that's important to us is the one that came out in 2011, which is part of the New 52, and it introduced, or reintroduced rather, characters Amanda Waller, Deadshot, and added Harley Quinn, which was a character that was originally incorporated with the Batman TV series that was animated. So the original comic book had nothing to do with the Enchantress, which if you've seen the movie, that's a huge point. The original villain in the New 52 version of Suicide Squad was a terrorist organization, but it did feature strongly the twisted relationship between Harley Quinn and the Joker. Then, of course, we have the movie novelization, which I have here. It differs from the film as well, which is really interesting. It's almost like the author of the movie novelization was given an early cut of the script. There's a lot more information with the Joker and Harley Quinn, and the fact that the Joker does not really want to have her around, which I thought was a sad thing that was missing from the movie. And what I understand is that a lot of the Joker and Harley Quinn scenes were actually cut from the final cut of the film, even on the extended edition Blu-ray. So I find it very interesting how you can kind of track the layout of a comic book into a film and then into an entire new, I guess, audience, and then have so many things that are different.
Has anybody else seen Suicide Squad?
Hold on.
Hey, who else saw it? And what are your thoughts on it? Oh, there we go.
This is not my wife's shirt. This is my shirt. I wore that to the movie. Which, by the way, I thought was awful, but we don't need to. That's not germane.
So I've been a Suicide Squad fan since the probably early 90s. I didn't hate the movie. I understand it was flawed. I think I understand why it was flawed. But again, I didn't hate it.
I think one of the things that happened was originally it was intended to be a lot darker and creepier, but then Batman versus Superman kind of flopped because it was so dark, so they did everything they could to lighten up Suicide Squad and make it goofy again. And that just made it, I mean, to me, just kind of made it a cartoon.
Agreed. Suicide Squad should not be light and fluffy.
Right, yeah, it's a bunch of criminals. One guy lit his family on fire. I mean, zippity-doo, get a joke out of that. I mean, this is dark, heavy stuff.
So were they ultimately not faithful enough to the original source material? Is that what I'm gathering?
It's not so much that. The film had about 10 different versions that were edited by different editors, added to the fact that you had something like 12 different hours of Jared Leto's Joker footage that ultimately didn't get used, partially because of the wanting to lighten it up factor. So I think it's more so a large issue of Warner Brothers hacking it apart and trying to make it into the movie they wanted versus into the director's vision of the movie, which the director only had like 2 months to write the script, which, as you know, is a very, very short amount of time for a film script.
That makes a lot of sense. I wasn't familiar with the Suicide Squad before seeing the film, so I can't speak to the, how well it followed the characters and the story and intention, but it just seemed very disjointed and it felt very odd, and the plot seemed choppy, and so what you're saying about how it was filmed and how it was cut makes a lot more sense to me now, because it just seemed problematic during the whole thing. It seemed like it never really went anywhere. There was all this stuff that was building up, and then it just kind of ended.
So I've got a question for Danielle. What do you think the lesson is behind Suicide Squad? Like, if you are a writer looking at the movie or the novelization or going back to the comic book, what can writers learn from that?
Basically, that once you sign your rights away for any dramatic thing to come out of it, that you will probably face the fact that what your vision is going to be completely different than what appears on screen, whether that's good or bad.
That is an excellent point, and that's something I have tried to tell people in the past, like students and things. Since I teach theater, and we talk about movies and books and everything in this one class, and that's one of the things I've tried to explain to them, that once you sell those rights, it's not your book. I have friends who get upset because they read the book and then they go to the movie and it's nothing like the book, and it's not going to be. It's just not going to be. And so, yeah, Danielle, I think that is the most important lesson and the biggest takeaway from this.
Is there a way to maintain your rights or to maintain some control over the final product?
Only if you're someone that's huge like J.K. Rowling, then you might have enough clout to put that in your contract of selling the rights, but otherwise, no.
Yeah, unless you're a gigantic enough name, like, Stephen King, J.K. Rowling, like she said. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue that you have to consider. It's why we don't have anything to do as your publishers. We don't have anything to do with the film rights. You have all of those, so those are on your table. We're here for you if you ever get an offer, and we're definitely willing to help you out. But as far as getting in there and being able to say what happens, we have no say over that, because you retain those rights. And when you sell those rights, more often than not, you're selling them completely, and you have no say.
Creative control off at that point as well for whatever happens.
Yeah. I need to Dick, and when Blade Runner was coming out, he had literally no say at all. And the fact that he insulted Ridley Scott in an interview didn't help his situation at all. But those kinds of situations, and he was an award-winning author. I mean, he had all of these awards, yet still his first film, which was Blade Runner, and he's had a lot of movies after that were made from his books, but he had no input into that script at all. He didn't like what they did. He goes, "This isn't my book," and he was right. It was like 1 or 2 chapters from his book and the concept of his book, sort of, kinda, and some of the characters from his book, sort of, kinda, and that was it. And this is back, of course, in the early 80s, so things have changed a little bit. But unless you've got a savvy agent or a savvy literary attorney in there fighting for you, you're going to kiss your rights goodbye and be happy all the way to the bank, hopefully.
That's another thing. A lot of people mistakenly think that the amount of money that you get for selling your rights is a huge amount, and these days I think it's not even like $900 for most people.
Wow.
I had a little studio that makes movies in Texas. Back when my book Moth was with a different publisher, they approached me about making Moth into a movie. They didn't offer me any money for the rights, but they, were going to share things with me. And then they, so I said, well, I've never heard of you guys. And so they sent me they said, well, here's one of our movies. We'll send it to you for free. This will give you an idea of the quality we put out. It was, I can't even begin to describe how terrible it was. And I thought, I'm not letting you idiots anywhere near my movie or near my book. Because first off, you're not offering me any money. Second, this movie's terrible. This is like shot with a camcorder, So, I mean, it was an awful. So no, I didn't. I just told them to go away, and they've never bothered me since. And I've never heard anything out of them since then. So it probably never would have happened anyway. But
The really big thing to ask for as an author when you get into negotiations, that if you can get it, is points on the back end.
Mhm.
That's what you want. You want a cut of the profits.
That way, at least if you're using that creative control, at least you're getting, you're making some money off of it. And hopefully, too, I mean, regardless of how true they stay to your book, if you end up with a movie deal and a movie rights, there will always be those people who will see the movie and then who will want to read it as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jen. Thanks for joining us, and tune in next time on Open Book.